Hello everybody. So you've been dealing with the Whistling Diesel situation with the Tennessee authorities arresting him twice for what they call tax evasion. And so you've been considering least restrictive means. I want you to add some layers to that. The idea is that any position in governance and law enforcement, we get programmed. You go to the academy, they program you in these situations, under these conditions, this is what you do. And a lot of times there's some good reasons for that, but a lot of times it's also very limited in terms of you're only seeing part of the picture and you're only considering what we normally do. And the idea is that you can't derive an ought from an is. You can't say because we're doing it this way, we should be doing this way. That's called a naturalistic fallacy. The idea is that just because you're doing something doesn't mean it was properly vetted, doesn't mean that variables haven't changed, doesn't mean that it's been challenged to a point where you really know that's the best way to do things. And the other thing is just having the law enforcement lens on, you have a tendency to see things from only that perspective. There's this saying that if the only tool you have is a hammer, everything starts to look like a nail. So the idea is be smarter than your programming. Understand it's there, understand why it's there, but don't be limited by it. And of course, if you start to go, really far off of what the norm is, then you might want to start, vetting that and checking that with, up the chain of command and with others in terms of if you want to start experimenting, you might want to have a lot more information to inform what you're doing before you start, doing new things. But a simple situation like this, the main question is, what's your objective? Well, the objective of the people that were behind this investigation, if you will, was to ensure that not only Whistling Diesel pays his taxes on his vehicle purchases, but anybody else setting up an LLC in another state and to avoid the taxes from Tennessee doesn't do the same thing. So, so what's the objective? Get them to pay their taxes. What is your means? What means are available to you to make that happen? That doesn't include enforcing a law, going criminal. So a lot of you came up with the idea that, they could have gone civil. They could have informed him ahead of time, hey, we believe that you owe taxes on this based on these laws and how we interpret them, and we're going to give you an opportunity to respond to this and pay these taxes. And then they could have gone criminal after that if you refused to or what have you. But here's the thing, the objective. Obviously, they focused on him because he has so many followers. And so, if we arrest him, we're going to intimidate the rest of the population that might be doing this into also paying their taxes. Hold on a second. Can I get the rest of the population to pay their taxes, or at least inform them that, hey, what you're doing is not legally, we could prosecute you? What would be the best way to do that? Because we want it to be least restrictive means, but we also want to be effective and legitimate, because Whistling Diesel, what's his response to Tennessee? Well, if that's the way you're going to treat people, if you're going to go right to the hammer, well, I'm going to go move to Montana, where they don't do that. They have better tax policies. You're not going to rip me off, so I'll just go there. So what happens to other people that see that happening? Well, I think we might follow. We might go to other states where they don't do this. So is Tennessee going to collect their tax revenue in the future when he buys cars later on? No. So did they meet their objective? No, not really. Partially maybe, but they've also shot themselves in the foot in terms of you're not really getting what you sought to get in the first place. So if that's your objective and you want to be least restrictive and effective and legitimate, how about this? Hey, Whistling Diesel, hey, we believe that you should be paying these taxes. We would like to collaborate with you in terms of, can we use you to maybe have an interview or have some kind of interaction, or you put it out on your channel that, hey, the state authorities contacted me and they informed me of this, that, and the other pertaining to how I registered my business, an LLC with Montana, to avoid the taxes. And what they're saying is that this is not legal and that it could be a criminal violation, but they're asking me to inform any of my audience that, do it apparently the right way according to the authorities is to just go ahead and pay the taxes. They're not going to honor that, and they could go after you. So, I've talked to my attorneys and I've done, this, that, and the other about, what I'm going to do about this, and I decided to pay the taxes, or that's what the law enforcement folks are asking of you right now. I'm also in contact with my state representatives to see if we can get the law changed. But for now, their advice and what I'm communicating based on what they've told me about my situation is I would encourage you to pay the taxes. Wow, collaborative. They use them as an asset, not to threaten everybody else, and they get more than what they want. It's like, wow. Because Whistling Diesel that was actually pretty cool, because they let me know, rather than showing up at my house with 6 cops and putting me in handcuffs and then doing it again later on. It's like, really, get the law enforcement eyeglasses off for a second, the lens off for a second, put what's my objective, least restrictive means, effective and legitimate. What else could we do? I know we normally do that, but what else could we do that's not anchored to only the law enforcement lens? And that's why when I have scenarios for my students that have not even been in law enforcement yet, 99% of the time they actually are more creative and have more effective responses than the experienced cops do because they haven't been programmed yet. So I just wanted to pass that on to you in terms of think broader, think wider, think beyond the programming, be smarter than your programming, and you can actually come up with really, really clever ideas that are very legitimate and meet these criteria. Let me know if you have any questions, if you have any insights that you'd like to share, and if I could help you in any way. Thanks.